Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 9.7 AD Carry tier list. So, as always, you can find access to this Google Doc in the description. I'll also have timestamps for you. If you don't have time to watch the whole thing, you can jump around to your favorite parts. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps out a ton. It's free. It's easy. It just takes a couple of clicks. If you're worried about getting too many notifications because I crank out so much content, you can always uncheck the bell. That way you're supporting the channel, but you're not getting your inbox flooded. Then you can just come by and check out the new content at your leisure. We also have lots of other content on the channel as well. So I did a support tier list yesterday. I also have in-depth patch notes if you want to check those out. We have a coaching tier, or a coaching playlist rather, with about 170 coaching games in that. If you want to check that out, we also have in-depth champion guides, in-depth champion playlists. If you just want to watch a bunch of Lulu or you want to watch a bunch of Janna or whatever, we have that on the channel. And we stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a wonderful, friendly community. We'd love to have you. Come on, check it out. I try to be very conversational with people. You can talk about League, you can talk about your day, talk about your pets, whatever you want to talk about. We're happy to have you. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So there's a couple of movers and shakers on this list. There'll be a lot of familiar faces, though, as we go down. But as per usual, I like to talk a little bit about what's been changing in the meta overall. I don't think there's been a ton that's changed as far as the AD carry role, but there's been a couple of things. Okay, so number one, I think that the Wits End buff is going to be really good, and a lot of people are not thinking about in terms of most AD carries. The most obvious one is going to be Vayne. I thought it was already really strong on Vayne, even when she didn't take any use, or make any use, rather, of the magic shred that was on it. Now they took the magic shred off and put some other good stuff on there as well. So let's go ahead and just look at the Wits End changes really quick. Because I think this will be a meta-defining item. There have been, of course, some all-caps videos about it, but there's all-caps videos about everything. But I think this is actually going to be a legit one. I have seen it in action in several games. I think mostly this is going to affect mid lane and top lane. I think that Irelia is extremely strong with this. So good Irelia players in the mid lane will be very difficult to beat when they're against AP champs because of the 50 magic resist here. So basically it has become, baseline, somewhere around 93% efficient. And that's if you get it level 1, which you're never going to get this item level 1. Including how much bonus damage you deal off of this. This doesn't include the healing that you get off of this, which is a ton. Even at 33% healing, when you're below 50% health, of course. But like later on in the game, when you're doing 60 here, that's going to be healing for 20 a hit, which is a lot. Especially when you start factoring in that Hurricane Bolts also trigger this. And so you could be getting 60 a hit, even if you're only healing for 20 normally. And Gensu's off of the double hits will trigger it twice. So when you get a Gensu hit and a Hurricane hit, you can very easily, stack this up to like 80 healing on a hit. So it's really, really nice. And obviously for melee champs, they get 100% off of that. So, on someone like Irelia, obviously she's not going to have Hurricane. She's not going to have Gensus, but she's still going to be doing 60 damage or 60 healing per hit, which is going to be pretty insane. But at its maximum value at level 18 is 4,300 values. That's 49%. Now, when we think about the major reason this is important is because a lot of champions that use Gensu's, Blade the Ruined King type of builds, so like Vayne, your Varus, your Kog'Maw, it's awkward to get that third item. A lot of times they'll do Hurricane, which is nice because it does apply Blade the Ruined King bolts to multiple targets, but that's only good if you're in a team fight and you're hitting 3 different people. So it is nice. It is good. Sometimes people will try to, start getting Infinity Edge, or they'll try to start getting, like Static Shiv or Phantom Dancer. If you compare this to something like Phantom Dancer, which I think is the most common one that people get as like a third item. It's not very efficient at all. It's only like 83% efficient. Yeah, and one of the big problems with getting these critical strike type of things is like, yeah, you are getting some benefit out of Wind's Fury, and Hurricane is one of the better champs. Obviously, Hurricane's not an option for Vayne because Hurricane doesn't apply her Silver Bolts. So this is why I think that Wits is particularly good on Vayne. But even on some other champs that might normally get Hurricanes, I think getting a Wits as that third item in some situations could be even better. Like Kog'Maw is a good example of this. I've seen people playing around with like Twitch potentially getting this. We'll talk about that later. Kaisa potentially getting this. The problem is that if you get Hurricane third, You're not going to have Infinity Edge in your build yet. You're not going to have any other crit chance in your build yet, and you're not going to have a lot of AD in your build. Blatherin King and Ginsu's Rage Blade are very low AD items compared to something like Infinity Edge. So you're not getting a lot out of the crit on this, so you're not getting full value out of that crit. What you do have is a lot of on-hit effects that are very strong, so attack speed is going to be more valuable to you on those types of champions than Critical Strike is most of the time. And this item is going to have more attack speed. So the Wit's End versus something like Phantom Dancer is going to have 20% more attack speed, and it has this on-hit, which interacts very favorably with Ginsu's, obviously. Critical Strike has no interaction with Ginsu's. So it's got 20% more attack speed, it has this on-hit damage, and it has healing. You know, you're already going to have Blatherin King, which does heal some, but the fact that this can heal and it can double proc the healing as well with Ginsu's makes this very, very strong. And it has really nice defense on it too. Now, it's only against magical damage. It's not against physical damage, so it's not quite the same thing as this Lifeline here, which gives you a temporary shield, but it's up all of the time. Right, so this has a 90-second cooldown. And that 50 magic resist means it's going to take 50% more magic damage to kill you. So if you have, you know, 1,500 health, then that's effectively going to be blocking 750 damage from magic damage as you go from 1,500 health all the way down to 0. Now, it doesn't include, you know, spell penetration and things like that. But I'm just trying to say that against magic users, it is comparable to this. And in many situations, it is better than this. Okay, so it gives you, you know, similar defense, I think, and you're substituting 25% critical hit for 20% attack speed and this on-hit damage. So I think that, this on-hit damage, rather. So I think that that makes this a much better choice as a third item power spike than some of the other items out there that you might get. So we'll talk about that more with certain builds. But I think Wit's End is definitely going to make a splash. I think that it's very good on certain kinds of bruisers. I think it's good on Jax. I think it's fantastic on Irelia. I think that champions like Shen can get this comfortably and be really strong. I think it's a grand slam on Vayne. It's very, very good as a third item on Vayne now. And I think there are other champs like Kog'Maw, like Varus, who might potentially want to get this instead of Hurricane in some situations. So that's the #1 item that I think could impact AD carry the most. So we'll see how it goes. Some durable champions might be on the rise a bit more. They did buff Cinderhulk on this patch, and they've been buffing tanks and tank items and individual tanks over the last few patches. So, and they nerfed Conquer. That was the really big thing. So some champs are still getting Conquer. There still are some really good tank breakers out there. So Kale's still going to be very popular. Urgot's still very popular. Champions like Fiora can still be pretty strong. Some champions are still going to get Conquer, like Irelia and Yasuo, and they'll still be pretty decent with that. So I don't suspect that, or I don't expect that most tanks will start automatically coming back into the fold. But I think that some tanks like Shen, some tanks like maybe Poppy, you know, they might start creeping up a little bit more in priority than they have been in the past. So we'll see. But basically champs that can break those, tank breaker type of things. And even if it's not like proper tanks, durable champions. That's why I like that word more than tank. Because if I say something like Irelia, people will be like, but Irelia is a fighter, or Irelia is a bruiser. It's like Irelia is hard to kill, is what she is. Okay, she's got a lot of mitigation. And someone like Vayne, someone like Kog'Maw are going to be very good at breaking those types of champs. Someone like Jinx is going to be very good at breaking those types of champs. Urgot, is he a tank? Is he a bruiser? Who cares? He's hard to kill. Okay, that's the main thing to keep in mind here. So some champions that are really good at busting up those types of things, like your Jinxes, like your Kog'Maws, like your Vaynes, are going to still be pretty high in priority. Especially because I think that Wit's End could bring down Assassins a bit more. Now, Assassins are always popular in solo queue, but I'm serious. I think that people are going to start finding out stuff they can stick in the middle with Wit's End, and that's just going to be lights out for AP Assassins. I think that Irelia is kind of the number one champ to look out for, but I think people will invent other things they can put in the middle and put a Wit's End on it and be strong. I don't know exactly what that'll be. It could be something like Corki. You know, this isn't a mid-tier list, so I'm not going to go, you know, all the way into it. But I think it's just going to be a lot harder for Assassins. Oh, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. But But I think there will be something. Like I said, I think Irelia definitely. Kayle, you could sit Kayle middle with a Wit's End. She'd be very hard for assassins to kill. Said kind of a little bit of a longer shot was maybe Corki. Corki usually likes to get Trinity first, but I mean, that stuff might be good on him to an extent. So, like I said, I'm not really sure. I just feel like it's going to make AP Assassins a lot tougher to play right now into a lot of matchups. So things like Lissandra, who's not technically like an assassin, but she does burst damage. Zoe, you know, does burst damage, but it's going to be harder to blow people up. So, we'll see. Anyways, so I think that maybe means if we start moving more towards tanks or at least durable champions, and we start moving away from some of these assassins, then certain champions like Jinx and like Kog'Maw, which we'll talk about, will gain a bit more priority because there's more likely you're going to have tanks on your team to hold the front line for you rather than everybody picking, you know, 5 squishy champs. And it means that you might need to have an AD carry that can break tanks to get through there or can break these durable champions to get through the back line. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. All right, magical footwear. Now, a lot of people have asked me on stream, why is everybody getting magical footwear and biscuits? And this is on almost every champion if you go down and look. And the main reason is a lot of AD carries are very homogenous about their secondary runes. I think there's a pretty good diversity in terms of what your keystone is. But in terms of secondary, a lot of people just gravitate towards whatever the best value is. And for a while, that has been Celerity plus Gathering Storm, so that you have more of a late game. But the early game is mattering more and more, and people are figuring that out. You know, you need to be able to take tower plates and fight people and gain advantages early and snowball really hard because those tower platings, it's serious. It's really, really strong. Drakes are very strong now. You know, being able to contest that, being able to get river vision, being able to help contest scuttles. All this is very, very powerful right now. So there's a lot of gold to be had, and that gold goes away. You know, if you don't get those tower plates in time before the timer runs out, then that's a lot of missed gold. So a lot of people are wanting that power now. They want the immediate power spike off of those secondaries. And I think that Magical Footwear plus Biscuits gives you that. Okay? So Biscuits just give you a ton of regen. It allows you to harass more. It'll refill your mana faster. It refills your health, obviously. This allows you to be very aggressive in the early game. Take a bunch of trades, and then footwear is something that doesn't seem like, well, that's not really that early game, is it? But the thing is, it saves you 300 gold, and so that means that it is better in the early game because you're going to hit your Blade of the Ruined King faster, or you're going to hit, you know, whatever, your BF sword faster because you don't have to spend 300 gold on boots. And then you do get those, you do get your boots around 9.5, 10 minutes or so. So you are a bit more vulnerable during that window, you know, probably between maybe 5 or 6 minutes and 9.5 minutes or so, that 3-minute window when you might normally back and be able to buy boots, then you are going to be a bit more vulnerable. But at the same time, realistically, if you're backing for a BF sword, a lot of times you don't have enough gold for boots anyways, so you're only going to get boots on your second back, which is probably going to be 10 minutes or later anyways, right? If the lane is going about even and you're not getting smashed and you're not smashing the enemy, you know, so on BF Sword users, it's definitely awesome, but even on, like, Bilgewater users, right, you want that 1,500 for Bilgewater, and so you don't want to have to buy boots in there. So, yeah, it is putting you behind, but realistically, you're not buying brown boots anyway. You want to keep up with that power spike. You want that BF Sword on your first back. You want that Bilgewater on your first back. And so this is just saving you 300 gold and allowing you to complete your big ticket item faster. So I think that's what the reasoning behind it is. You know, Absolute Focus and Celerity used to give you really nice early game power spikes in the form of movement speed or a lot of AD. But Gathering Storm was always something that, you know, doesn't really start becoming super valuable until about 20 minutes in the game. But with the plating and all the other stuff that I mentioned, you want to have more power earlier on. Okay. So let's get in here. All right, Vayne, I think, is still going to be number 1. The champion's just ridiculous ever since they buffed her Q to where it's like a 1-second cooldown whenever she ults. I mean, she's just got the total package. She has really nice scaling. She has really high base attack speed, 65 base attack speed. And she gets a lot per level. And then she can dodge stuff really easily with her Q. She can chase people down. She has a 1.5 second stun in lane, which is really good to like pair together with other CC champs. So if anyone ever steps in that bush, and you know the supports always love to hang out in the bush, if your support engages on them and stuns them in the bush, they're going to die because you're going to tumble in, you're going to pin them against the wall, and they're done. So if Morgana engages on that Sona who's standing in a bush, if she doesn't flash immediately, she's dead because you're going to pin her into the wall. So not a lot of other AD carries have basically a point-click 1.5 second stun. Now, yes, it doesn't work all the time, but there are a lot of times where people will stand too close to the bush or they'll stand too close to the little wall near the river, and you can get those stuns off. So that's something that's really underrated with Vayne that is actually quite strong. But the thing that did change about her a few patches ago that really sent her off to the races was the change to her ultimate, right? Where now you get a 50% cooldown on your tumble. This is astronomically powerful for a few reasons. Number one, it allows you to reposition much more, right? So it's going to be even harder to hit you with skill shots because your Q is going to be off cooldown more often. It also obviously empowers your attacks so that you get these little basically mini crits much more often. But one thing that is really underestimated by a lot of people is you're invisible for longer. You have more uptime on your invisibility. That means it saves you a lot of damage because when you're invisible, people can't auto attack you. You know, so when you turn on your ult, you walk in, you auto attack them a couple of times, then you tumble, you're invisible. They're only going to get maybe one attack on you, and then you're going to hit them again. So you're already going to have 3 attacks on them, plus triggering your press the attack, plus a Silver Bolts proc, and they're going to be at like less than half health, and they've only hit you once so far because you got invisible and canceled one of their auto attacks, or made it impossible for them to point click on you, right, and try to CC you, or, you know, do whatever they're trying to do to you, right? So just that invisibility and your ability to reapply it over and over and over again saves you a ton of damage on auto attacks coming at you, makes it very difficult to aim skill shots at you. It's a real nightmare to try to deal with that. Even at level 6, it's a huge power spike. So even if she doesn't have her Blade of the Ruined King completed, she can still kill you with this now because she gets so much extra utility out of the invisibility, so much extra damage. And that frees her up with her build where she can max W first. And they buffed this a while back too. It used to be 12%, now it's 14%. And I think they buffed the minimum also, so it's way better against squishies. But you used to have to max your Q so that you would have more uptime on the invisibility, more damage, all that kind of stuff that we just talked about when your ult was up. But now you don't have to because you get 50% cooldown on it. So now you can put all of those points into Silver Bolts so that you're doing, you know, instead of only doing 4% of somebody's maximum health on the third hit, you're doing 9% of their maximum health. And this means that the Ginsu build is even more powerful because now by the time you complete your Blade of the Ruined King and start getting into Ginsu, you're already going to have this maxed out. So that's going to be even stronger. And so she's so strong off of 1 item and a 2-item power spike. Like her 2 items is almost like other champions' 3 items just because that synergizes so insanely well with her kit. It just does tremendous amounts of true damage, tons of mobility. You know, you're not getting away. When she gets ahead, you are not escaping. She is going to run you down. She's going to kill you. She has so much safety from a lot of divers because she can go invisible, makes it difficult to target. She can tumble around every second or two, reposition herself, and she has a knockback that could potentially stun you as well. And she just does a ton of damage. And she's extremely fast. So there's just all these things that are just so ridiculous. And a lot of the champions that have been very good against her historically, if you think about like Vayne, Misfortune, that's how you beat her, is you bully her out in lane, right? And so Ignite has been nerfed though. Dark Harvest has been nerfed. A lot of the champions, a lot of the supports that could bully you out in lane, the Brands, the Xayahs, those have been nerfed. So there's just not a lot of that floating around out there right now that can punish her in lane. And there's so much sustain too. People are finding sustain in this build. You know, she can even take Overheal. If she wants to, she can take Lifeline. She can take Taste of Blood. And she can even take Ravenous Hunter if she wants to. And she can start with Doran's Shield. And Enchanters are very powerful. So, you know, she can go ahead and get healed from Enchanters. So it's just almost impossible to punish her out of lane now. There's just so much sustain in the game, especially down in the bot lane, that it's crazy. So I think that's awesome. She has a really good build path. Blade of the Ruined King is a very comfortable, awesome build path too, compared to something like Infinity Edge. Infinity Edge sucks to build. When you get it, it feels good. Like, it's great. It's a nice little power spike, but it sucks to build because you have to buy so many expensive items. And so your back timings have to be very crisp. You cannot lose lane. Like, you cannot get pushed out of lane before you get your BF sword, or it is awful. You know, if you're Jinx and you get pushed back and you have 900 gold, it just feels terrible to have to buy that pickaxe instead of that BF sword. And, you know, Lord help you if you get pushed out with 700 gold and you can't even buy a pickaxe. It just feels awful. You know, so if the jungler comes and camps you, it may not even be your fault. Maybe the jungler is just sitting on you, right? Just over and over and over again, just relentlessly. Or maybe your support's just AFK behind you and not helping you. And so you're having to eat all this harass to try to CS. It's really rough out there. Blade of the Ruined King helps out so much with that, though, because you have so many, like, awesome components that give you such incremental value as you level up, right? You have Vamp Scepter, right? You have to go back. You only got 900 Vamp Scepter. No problem. Feels great. You get extra sustain in the lane. Builds into Bilgewater. It's great. You go back with 1,500. You get the full Bilgewater. Awesome. Now you get AD plus your lifesteal, plus you get that activatable for 100 damage, which is pretty solid. You have to back early. You kind of have to take a bad back. No problem. You can go ahead and just buy a longsword or buy a dagger or two. It's so modular. There are so many little components to that item that are all very useful, very helpful. And they're all, you know, a bunch of them are like, you know, 300 or 400 gold to either get a component or to complete a little mini item, like to, you know, go from longsword into Vamp Scepter, right? Or to go from double dagger into recurve bow. You're not really sitting around with a lot of gold in your inventory. So it's super cost efficient, and it makes you much more flexible in your ability to buy, whether you're, you know, taking bad trades in lane or whether you're dominating. You know, sometimes one of the traps is, you know, with some champs like Jinx, it's like, wow, we just got, you know, 2 kills in the bot lane really early in the game, right? Like, I just, you know, maybe you get a kill, maybe your support gets a kill, you go up and you take a tower plate, and you're like, man, I'm so far ahead, but wait a minute. I only have 900 gold. I guess I'm going to have to stay in lane longer and save up for the BF sword, right? That's the temptation. And so that means that you're not going to get to express that power. While you're in lane, it's like you never killed him to begin with. Like, you might be up a little bit in levels. You might be a couple of CS up. But you don't get to use that power because you have to save for the BF sword because you have really bad back timings. Whereas like with someone like Vayne, you know, that happens to you. You got 900 gold. Awesome. I'm going back getting a Vamp Scepter, and I can come back and just keep the pressure up. So, Blade of the Ruined King is so awesome for that because it's so modular. It gives you that lifesteal. It has an awesome active component. You know, when you finally complete it, it, you know, speeds people up, slows you down, or slows them down, speeds you up. Has that burst damage to it, does the percentage health damage. So, it's just a really, really awesome item. People love to buy it. It feels good. It allows you to be much more flexible, much more modular, and objectively, it is really powerful as well. So it's just a super flexible item, and she's one of the best Blade of the Ruined King users in the game. So people are going press the attack on her. There were some people that were trying out Halo Blades in the past, but I don't know. They've switched over to press the attack, and my reasoning that why I think people have done that is it just gives you more burst damage during the laning phase, and so that actually allows you to take some really good trades, when in the past, you know, Halo Blades kind of helps with that a little bit, but just having that little bit of burst damage can help you out quite a bit, and especially if you're trying to take down tanks later, it's like, yeah, you are doing, you know, true damage every third bolt, but, you know, a lot of your attacks are still going to be normal damage as well, so having that extra little bit is really handy, especially with, I think that Ginsu's... It means that they're going to end up, your Blade of the Ruined King is also going to end up doing more damage off of its proc, because it's physical damage. And so, you know, if you take Halo Blades, like, yeah, you're doing the true damage with the bolts, but you have your Blade of the Ruined King procs, which benefit from press the attack. You know, your Blade of the Ruined King procs will do 12% more damage. This is magic damage, so it's going to do 12% more damage whenever you land this. If you go for a Wit's End, that's going to be doing 12% more damage. So I think just the percentage damage increase from press the attack is really, really handy. So that's why a lot of people are doing that on Vayne these days. Hail Blades is still okay. Lethal Tempo potentially can be okay as well. You get out a lot more auto attacks. That makes sense. More blade procs, more everything. But I think people are going for the press the attack mostly for that burst damage, just to compensate early on for your lack of burst damage, because your abilities don't do a ton of damage early. So, press the attack, overheal, alacrity, coup de grace, and then I like Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter. I saw people doing this a few patches ago. This gives you extra sustain in the laning phase. Ulti Hunter just got buffed, and your ultimate is so supremely powerful, like we talked about before. Whenever this is up, you're winning. Not only are you winning 1v1s, you know, you're winning team fights, you're winning everything whenever this is up. And so, yes, it is on a fairly short cooldown, but this will allow you to make much, much more plays. So you can go for Boots and Biscuits, and that's what a lot of people... I believe are doing. If we sit here and look at this, A lot of people are doing the Boots and Biscuits deal, but, you know, I still think that some people are doing the Domination build. Yeah, so you can go Taste of Blood, and you can go Ravenous Hunter. If you want to be greedy, you can go with that Ulti Hunter. So I think that I think that it could still be good. I don't know about Cut Down. I still think that Coup de Grace is stronger, but it's kind of up to you. So yeah, a lot of people are taking it for the Ravenous Hunter, but it's up to you. You can't really go wrong, like I said before, with kind of the Boots Biscuit build. It gives you sustain and lane, gives you free boots, going to allow you to tech up faster. So it just depends on, you know, what you want to do. But that's what I'm going to recommend. I really liked having the Ulti Hunter. Maybe it's just not as good as Boots Biscuit, but I think that it's pretty cool. Scaling into the late game so that you always have it up every time you can roam around and, you know, hunt people down in those clown fiestas. And then it's Blatherin King Ginsu. So everybody knows these are the two items all the time, forever and always now. Do not do crit on Vayne. It's nowhere near as strong as Blatherin King W Max. Now, the question after this is, what do you get? Okay, so historically, Vaynes, I believe, will typically either get a Quicksilver Sash for safety, or they will get Phantom Dancer. So Phantom Dancer is kind of the premier dueling item that you're going to want, right? Because it has that shield on it. So you're not going to be getting typically, like, you don't benefit from Hurricane Bolts at all. You're not really a wave clear champion, so Static Shiv's not going to matter. Rapid Fire is probably not going to matter. So most people get this for dueling. Well, I just talked about Wit's End in terms of this, right? I think that Wit's End is way stronger because I feel like having, if you have Ginsu's Rage Blade, I feel like having 60 on-hit damage and 20% attack speed is going to be way stronger than 25% crit. And that's what it comes down to. Right? Witz has 20% more attack speed than this. It doesn't have any crit, but it has the on-hit. They both have the same movement speed. And you get this shield. But once again, I think that Witz, in a lot of situations, is even better defensively because it's up all of the time, and it's going to give you more effective health against magic users. Now, yes, it's not going to help you against physical damage users, so that's a thing. If they have an all-AD team, of course, don't get Witz. But I think if they do have, you know, a mage or, you know, a magic damage jungler or a magic damage support or whatever, it's definitely worth considering. So, you know, that's what I think. I think that more people should switch over to Witz. I think that more people will once they try it because it's insane. I mean, it could be even without the magic resist. It's still strong enough. It's still, I think, objectively more damage than Phantom. And so it's like, do you want more damage or do you want this shield? Which Witz is similar. And you get lifesteal off of it. A lot of lifesteal off of it. Because remember, the lifesteal double triggers off of Ginsu's. So, I think Witz is better unless they're literally an all-AD team. I think that Witz is going to be a better choice for you. But I'll leave it up to you. Okay, let's go ahead and move on here. Jinx, still going to be strong. I got asked on stream this by a couple of people, like, why is Hurricane so good on Jinx? Well, the main reason that you get Hurricane on Jinx is because each one of those Hurricane bolts applies rockets. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. I have seen Jinxes like rush Rapid Fire Cannon, like Infinity Edge Rapid Fire Cannon. Terrible. Don't do that. You really, really want Hurricane on Jinx because each one of those bolts becomes a rocket, and they all splash and hit anyone else that's close by. So if you have 3 people in a team fight, they're stacked up pretty close to each other. You auto-attack once. You get 9 hits. That's right, 9. Because each one of those 3 bolts can hit each one of the 3 other people. So you're getting 9 hits in one auto. OP as hell. You know, people are wondering, well, why is Jinx 55, 56% win rate bot Ryan? That's a huge part of it right there, is because she just basically automatically wins every team fight because she's Jinx. And she has huge attack range too. So she can stay away, you know, from a lot of the riffraff in there. She's not going to get hit by just random AoE damage. It just makes it really, really hard to get to her. If the support's peeling at all, if they have a jungler or a top lane that can peel, she's just going to out DPS most other AD carries out there, with the exception of maybe Vayne. But once again, in team fights, she's going to do more damage because she's just hitting more people. Like, Vayne does way more to single targets, but she just does an insane amount. So she gets a ton of attack speed, or a bunch of range. Either way is pretty crazy. So that's a huge part about her. She also has like a decent game too, like in the laning phase versus some of the other hyper carries. Like Twitch is similar. He has really good team fighting. We'll talk about Twitch here in a second, but he has a slightly worse laning phase because he doesn't have as much range and he doesn't have as much wave clear early. Like her abilities actually do pretty decent burst damage. This zap hurts. I mean, early on, it's 160% of your total AD, not bonus AD. So this thing, you know, like by level 3 or so, you know, it's going to be hitting people for like 100 damage, maybe more. Probably more, way more. Probably like 150 damage, you know, for 50 cost on a low cooldown. And this isn't integral to your kit. You know, if you miss your zap, no big deal, right? You can still auto attack. You still have your chompers. So she has some okay self-peel with chompers. You can't jump over chompers anymore either. They changed that a while back. So if you drop these chompers and Zach, you know, tries to jump over them to come get you, or Tristana tries to jump on you, they get caught midair. The only things that don't get caught are things that are unstoppable. So this will not stop a Hecarim that uses his ult to run through it. Okay, so remember that. But a lot of stuff, a lot of gap closers, people think they can just jump right over this thing because you used to be able to do that. You cannot anymore. Okay, so Flame Chomper's decent peel. And you can just snipe out a lot of free kills with your Mega Death Rocket. I mean, it's global range. You can try to snipe people from across the board. It's got a really low cooldown, and it just does a ton of damage. Even if it's relatively close range, it's still going to do a heck of a lot of damage. So if someone's at, like, you know, less than a third health, they're definitely dying. So that's, I mean, that's basically it. She has really good wave clear early on with her rockets. If you want to do that, she has very nice range. She has decent self-peel for someone who puts out this much damage. She has some okay poke at a really long range, almost 1,500 range on the zap. So she has elements of burst with zap and her ult, and also, like, just insane sustained damage. So really her only vulnerability is she's not super mobile. Like, she has some self-peel with this, but it's not going to save you against Leona ulting you, or Thresh hooking you, or Blitz hooking you, or something like that, right? So you got to be careful playing her. However, Morgana is very popular right now. Morgana can peel really well for you. Thresh is also very popular. Thresh can peel very well for you if it's a competent Thresh. Tahm Kench, not as popular, but, you know, Tahm Kench is super great with Jinx overall. So, I think she's very good. She has the highest win rate right now. She's also really easy to play for the most part. You just turn on your fish bones, right click, they get close to you, hit them with a zap, you know, drop your chompers, try to peel for yourself. There's not a lot of intricate mechanics going on here, so that means you can put up very consistent results, and you can use a lot of your mindset to track where the jungler is, to pay attention to which objectives you should be doing, to pay attention to your CS. So it's freeing up a lot of your mental capacity to do other things as well in the game because you're not worried about all of these technicalities, right? You're not Xayah trying to make sure that you get the geometry exactly right on your feathers, or Draven trying to make sure you're catching all the axes. So I think that's really a very good thing for her. So, lethal tempo, you just want to crank out as many of those rockets as you can later on in team fights. Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, and then Footwear Biscuits. And then you just want to rush Infinity Edge as fast as possible, Hurricane. Then after that, it's kind of up to you. I think Phantom Dancer for the shield can be pretty good. Or Static Shiv. Rapid Fire Cannon as a third item could also be pretty strong. Now, you might say, I thought you were just saying that Wit's End is better than Phantom Dancer. Yes, but not in a crit build. Remember, that's for Gensu's. Wit's End is better with a Gensu's build because you double proc the Wit's End on hit damage, right? When you go in a crit build, you definitely want to go Phantom Dancer first. If you're starting with Infinity Edge, you don't want to get a Wit's End because Infinity Edge scales so well with critical strike items that you just want to keep getting as much crit as you possibly can, usually until you get to 100%. So that's Jinx, still going to be super strong. Twitch is another one. Twitch has been rising up in popularity and in power a lot lately. So if we look here at Twitch, you know, he's like the third highest legit AD carry. I'm not counting Heimerdinger, Mordekaiser, and Taric because they have such small sample size. Less than 1% of the people play him. But he's moving up a lot. People are figuring this out. I mean, 54.2% win rate is pretty high. I mean, just a couple of patches ago, he was 52%. Now, a lot of this is because of the same reason I was talking about with Vayne, right? Where people just cannot punish him as much as they used to be able to do it. People are just not playing the Brands and the Xayahs. If they do play them, they don't do as much damage as they used to. And there's just so much sustain in the game with this Biscuit build. And then he's a Blade of the Ruined King user, right? Just like Vayne. So you have this nice, really smooth power curve where you can get lifesteal early. It's very modular. If you have to take a bad back, you know, that's not the end of the world. You know, if you back with 900 gold, it is the end of the world if you're a BF sword user. if you're trying to get Infinity Edge. But if you're going to play the Rune King, you can get a Vamp Scepter, right? You can get a couple of daggers or a longsword or whatever. It's just so much more flexible. Games are lasting a little bit longer, and you're getting a bit more gold in your pocket also from these early game tower plates. So that means you can accelerate your build faster. So some of these hyper carries, they start really taking over the game once they get, 2 and 3 items, because there's more gold in those towers now. They're going to hit that status faster. So Twitch is one of those people. Vayne is one of those people. And Twitch is just always good in solo queue. I mean, I've talked about Twitch a ton in the past, but invisibility, you just can't teach that. It's just something you can't get off of your items a lot of time. It's like talking in terms of basketball, you just can't teach height, right? Or talking, something else, you just can't teach big. And it's the same thing with Twitch. His kit is just so strong. He has so much power built into his kit. And he's just so flexible in how he can play, the items he can build. This is why on my one-trick video, he's one of the best one-tricks. I think I had Twitch and Draven as the 2 best one-tricks. I think Twitch was my #1 overall, if I'm remembering that correctly. And the reason is he just has so many things going on. He's invisible. He can go invisible for up to 14 seconds. You can run halfway across the map with this. You know what invisibility, when that's really good? In solo queue, because nobody buys pink wards, or control wards as they're called now. And no one expects him. Everyone just thinks, oh, Twitch is not going to be here. Yeah, I can push one more wave in this side lane. There's no way Twitch is going to be here. And then he shows up and you're dead. So it's just not knowing where he is all the time is just so unnerving. Like, it's so frustrating for a fed Twitch, because you just know he's going to pick off that one dumb ally that you have that just refuses to respect invisibility. Like, doesn't buy pinks, pushes past river, all that stuff. He's going to find somebody he can exploit on a team most of the time. Some support that's greedy, trying to go ward Baron without any help. Some AD carry trying to split bot lane by himself. You'll find a way to exploit the invisibility a lot. And I mean, even outside of that, just in team fights, like, you don't know if he's actually there or not. It's like, do we take this fight? It looks like it's a 3v3. We see our top laner and their top laner in a side lane. Yeah, sure, let's take it. And then you start the fight, and like 2 or 3 seconds later, just after you used your CC on somebody, then all of a sudden, boom, there he is. Hi! And it's just like he blows up your whole team. So like a smart Twitch will sit there and wait until you use some of your CC on somebody, and people will. In most elos, they just blow all of their CC on the first person they see. They're like, oh my god, it's the tank. I'm Leona. Let me drop all of my crowd control on it. And then after they drop all of their crowd control on that, Twitch shows up and just evaporates the team. Because if you don't deal with him, like within 2 seconds at the absolute max, if he gets to sit there and fire off like 4 shots, your team's dead. So that's why he's really strong. And he just has a bunch of built-in power. He gets extra attack speed here, 50% extra attack speed. So he's invisible. He gets extra movement. He gets extra attack speed. For some reason, he gets a reset. If he kills somebody, he can go invisible again. So it makes it really hard to target him, like Vayne. In fights, allows him to reposition again. And then on his ultimate, he just randomly gets a lot of AD. So he gets 300 extra attack range. So he's 850 attack range with his ult. It can hit multiple targets and applies on-hit effects to everybody that's hit. So it applies Blade of the Rune King or Wit's End or Ginsu's or whatever on everybody that gets hit. And if that's not enough for you, then he stacks up this poison every time he hits somebody, which is basically delayed on-hit damage, right? So you get this stacked up, it's true damage, then you can activate your Contaminate and, just do a casual 270 damage to everybody with a 210% AD ratio, bonus AD ratio. So it's just disgusting. The thing is, in the laning phase, he's weaker, though. He has virtually no self-peel. He's got Venom Cask, but it's not going to stop that many people from coming at you most of the time. And he can go invisible and run away. So if he has time, if you have good warding, he can go invisible and get away from stuff. But he's just so flexible. He's a great Blade of the Rune King user. He loves having that extra healing to get him through the lane. With his ultimate, it applies on-hit effects, so he applies Blade to everybody. He likes having that that kiting mechanic in there, right, with the Blade active, so that he can get away if people do manage to get on top of him. And he likes Hurricane, because Hurricane is going to allow him to apply his poison to multiple people in fights, and it's going to allow him to apply Blade of the Rune King to everybody in fights. So he just has such good synergy with those 2 items. And then you can go Infinity Edge, because each one of these shots can also crit, and he has a really nice AD ratio on the poison. So having a lot of AD is really good on him. Or, you know, you could just keep doing on hit like Wit's End, I talked about before, which, you know, before would have been pretty troll because he doesn't have any magic damage in his kit. And so stealing the, you know, the magic resist or whatever didn't matter. But now it gets a lot more interesting, right? Because you've got 50% attack speed. You know, you've got 50 magic resist, which helps you from getting blown up a lot. You're going to have so much lifesteal between Blather and King and the Wit's End that unless they blow you up really quickly on that backline, you're going to heal up because you're hitting everybody, right? Not only are you hitting everybody with Hurricane, you're hitting everybody with your bolts. Remember, those bolts apply this as well. So I think, I don't know how this works geometrically. I think in theory, you could actually double tap somebody every time you fire with this. Because if they're lined up in a straight line, but they're all close enough, those bolts are going to hit those 3 people. It doesn't say they have to be perpendicular to you, I don't believe, on the Hurricane. And so if they're all 3 lined up like that, your bolts are going to hit them, which will trigger Wit's End, and your ultimate, because it goes through everybody, will trigger it. So you can actually hit this on multiple people. So if there are like 3 people lined up in a line and you open up on them with Hurricane and Wit's End, and let's say that this is doing, what, 60 damage a hit. You're doing 60 damage to all 3 of them once, and you're doing 60 damage to all 3 of them again. So that's going to be 360 damage off of Wit's End every shot that you're doing to them. And even if it's a 33% whatever reduction, that's still 120 health you're healing every single shot if you're below 50% health. So you're just completely murdering everybody, potentially with this. So I think that Wit's End could be good. Now, I'm not the only one that thinks this. There are some people. It's still in the minority of people that are getting this on Twitch. You got to remember that a lot of people are set in their ways. A lot of pro players just stick with the same builds they've been building for patch after patch after patch. But Sneaky is the innovator here. He did go for Wit's End. It doesn't tell us who he was against in this tab. Let me see the post game. What was he against? Ahri was their only magic damage. So they didn't even have that much magic damage. And he still thought that it was a good idea. He might just be testing it out. You don't know. Sometimes pro players just kind of have some fun, especially, you know, Sneaky. Maybe he's just testing some stuff out. But I do think that a build like this could be useful. Now, he's actually going Gensu's instead of... he's actually going Gensu's instead of Hurricane, which is an interesting choice. I mean, this is much higher single target damage with the Gensu's because you're going to double tap your Blather and King, and I believe it also double applies your poison. You don't have any magic damage, so the AP doesn't matter as much. You do have an AP ratio on your E, which does magic damage, but has some AP scaling, so it's not a totally wasted stat. It does give you armor pin, which does work out very, very well with your poison as well. Sadie, get out of that. What are you doing? It does give you armor pin. So, I don't know. I haven't tried this with him. My one concern is, like, with Twitch, because usually how your trading goes is you want to walk up, invisible, open up, and delete people instantly. That's not how Gensu's typically works. You want to charge up your Gensu's, usually on a minion wave first, and then you go fight whenever possible, right? And so, really, Gensu's is for people that want kind of longer fights. If you're in a team fight, you know, you want to be able to, like, actually activate your Gensu's and use it. My concern is with Twitch. Now, I would have to see how this stacks. It's basic attacks, though. It's not on hit, so you would actually have to attack and hit people 6 times. And I just think that in fights, by the time you get 6 auto attacks off, the fight's done one way or another. Either you're dead, they got on you and stopped you, or you killed everybody. So that's why I'm not sold on the Gensu's yet. I'm not sold on it just because you don't want to stack it up on things because they will see you. His power is he can show up invisible and delete people really quickly, right? It's not like Vayne where you're probably going to be rolling up. Maybe you hit the minion wave a couple of times and then you ult and go at him, right? Or Jinx, who can, power up a little bit on the minions. So, we'll see. I don't know. Sneaky's obviously a very smart, good player. A lot of other people weren't trying that build, but I think that Wit's End is worth considering, especially if they have a heavy AP, presence on their team. It's worth considering. It's hard. You can't really go wrong. You already have Hurricane, you know, Blatherin King plus Hurricane a lot of times. So Infinity Edge is very good, and that's the standard. That's going to give you crits. It's going to give you more AD, so your poison does more damage when you activate it. It's good. Okay, so that is the go-to good build. But I do think that considering Wit's End in some circumstances, particularly if that magic resist is going to be useful, could potentially be very, very good on Twitch right now. So once again, you're trading out all of that AD for a bunch of attack speed and on-hit damage. So you have to decide whether or not you think that's going to be worth it. It does also give movement speed, which can allow you to rotate faster and kite better and things like that. So it does have some intangible stuff like movement speed and lifesteal also. Okay, let's talk about Draven here really quick. Always say really quick. It's like not really quick compared to most content creators, but anyways. Okay, Draven's still strong. Not much has changed about Draven. Just remember the main takeaway here that I predicted 3 or 4 patches ago when they nerfed Conquer is you need to be going Klepto. That's what a lot of people are getting on Draven these days. And the main reason for that is whenever you use your Blood Rush, it's very cheap. It's only 30 mana. It allows you to run up there and get a quick trade. Now, a lot of clowns are still getting Conquer. A lot of the hoi polloi, right? A lot of the masses out there. But the smart people, the pros, are getting Klepto. Like, there are some people that are getting some holdouts that are getting Press the Attack. But you got to remember, like, with Draven, what is your trade pattern most of the time? You run up and you hit them in the face once or twice, and the fight's pretty much done. They're either running away or you've basically won the fight, right? And so, kind of like Twitch, fights are so short most of the time that involve Draven that you're definitely not going to have time to stack up Conquer and get a lot of benefit out of it. Either you've won the fight or you haven't by that point. Press the Attack. Press the Attack is a little bit better because it does give you some burst damage, which does complement, you know, his sort of burst playstyle, and it does help you out with tanks later on. Because Draven does kind of have a problem with tanks, people that stack a lot of armor. But because he doesn't have a lot of mechanics that help him out with critical strikes or mechanics that give him a lot of extra attack speed or on-hit damage, all that kind of stuff. But Klepto gives you more sustain. It gives you more fighting power. It gives you that gold so you can double down so you can hit your items faster. Gives you more potions. Gives you more biscuits. Remember, biscuits are really hot right now. You can actually get biscuits and more potions. It's the same kind of concept, right? Where you actually, people think of Klepto as a late game rune. It's not. It's really an early game rune. Late game champions like Kayle and Ezreal will get it to get through the early game, but you can also get it on early game oppressive champions like Victor top lane that was really popular for a while, or Kennen top lane. So Draven is in the latter category, right? He's very oppressive in lane, so you double down. You get more potions. You can get some of those little mini flasks that give you extra AD. You can get wards, so you can be more aggressive and push up without having to worry about the jungler as much. And then because you're getting this extra gold, you hit your power spikes faster. You're going to come back with that BF sword. You know, you can time it to where you can, you know, leave maybe one wave early, get that BF sword and come back in before they're ready to leave, right? And then you're going to have a huge tempo advantage on them. So I think the Klepto build is particularly strong on him. I definitely see the merits in the Press the Attack because it does have the burst damage. It does help you out with tanks later on. But I'm still a huge component of Klepto. I mean, Klepto is really a fun rune too, so I am kind of biased because it is really cool to play with it. But I do think that things like Time Warp Tonic, Biscuit, and then being able to go stuff like Overheal, Alacrity, things like that are going to be very strong on him. So he's great. I mean, he's a great bully. He's one of the few early game bullies that I would recommend right now to try to combat some of these champs like Vayne and Twitch. He can completely bust them up in the laning phase. Now, he has a harder time against things like Jinx because he can get outranged and outscaled later on. But against some of these closer range champs like Twitch and Vayne that have to go up and, you know, last hit with 550 range, he can bust them up early. You better beat them early, though, because they both get very, very strong. Now, it's not like Draven completely falls off a cliff. People think Draven, well, he's not that good later. He's good at burst damage later. He's not as good at super high sustained damage later because he has to keep catching his axes. And he doesn't get as much attack speed as other champs. But he still does really high burst to squishies later on. So this has really good scaling. I mean, 105% of your bonus AD. I mean, that's basically a crit and some change every single time you attack. So if you actually get a real crit off of Infinity Edge, then it's almost like you're double critting. So you're going to be, you know, cracking people for like 800 damage, you know, on an auto attack once you get Infinity Edge. So that's very, very strong. Has really excellent scaling later on into the game. Blood Rush, pretty good attack speed, gives him some nice movement speed. And then obviously his Whirling Death is good. Stand Aside is actually really underrated and very strong for disrupting people that are trying to dive you. You know, you can knock Xayah out of the sky. You can knock Jarvan off of his flag. You can knock Leona out of her E. You can knock Alistar out of his headbutt. If you learn how to time this correctly, it can be very, very good. So Draven is hard to play, mostly because you have to catch axes while dodging skill shots. The higher your elo goes, the more they're going to exploit the fact they know where your axes are going to land. So Nami's going to throw bubbles on those axes. Zyra's going to throw plants on those axes. You know, Tahm Kench is going to throw a tongue lash on those axes. So everybody's going to punish you as much as they can when they know where those axes are going to be. So you have to keep that in mind. That's part of what makes it really tough, is you have to not only catch them, but you have to dodge all of these skill shots that they're going to try to use to exploit the fact that they know where your positioning is going to be. And so, yeah, I mean, he's really strong. He's one of the best one-trick champions out there, so I highly recommend trying him out if you want to play him. He's also very versatile, like Twitch. This was my, you know, 1A and 1B best one-trick champions because he survives in almost any meta. If you're good with Draven, he can just completely take over. Like, there's a reason that one of the most famous streamers, Tyler1, you know, plays Draven, right? Is because he's so good at AD carry in almost every meta, right? Because he can do critical strike. He can do on hit. Well, not really like true on hit, but like lifesteal items, I should say. So he can rush a Death's Dance. He can rush a Bloodthirster. He can rush Infinity Edge. There are a lot of different items he can rush. Don't do on hit. Don't do Blade the Ruined King, like Gensu's Draven or something. That's awful. Okay, so don't do that. He's even played Lethality in the past. Don't do that right now either. That's bad in the current meta. But when Lethality was stronger, or if they ever buff Lethality, you know, he can do stuff like Ghost Blade, Dust Blade, that type of stuff too, because he just has such high burst damage. So he's got a lot of versatility. It's very difficult to nerf him out of the meta. So he's a good person to learn if you want to learn. So I think that Klepto, Footwear, Biscuits, Cosmic, and then just Triumph and Alacrity. You can do Overheal as well if you want. They did nerf it a couple of patches ago, but it's still reasonable. Then I think Bloodthirster is the best thing to rush. Now, some Dravens will rush Infinity Edge. You might say, well, why is that? You know, what's the difference? Because you'll see some people rush Bloodthirster, some people rush Infinity Edge. You know, like this guy, Thusma or whatever, is rushing Bloodthirster. I'm trying to see. What did Zen rush? Zen rushes Bloodthirster, then Infinity Edge. So the main reason for that is that this extra damage applies lifesteal. So he lifesteals for a tremendous chunk of health because this bonus damage, you get healing off of it. This bonus damage cannot crit. Okay, so it's important to keep that in mind. It's just extra damage on top of whatever happens, but it cannot crit. Okay, so that's the thing. It's like Infinity Edge, yes, you hit really hard. Yes, you do want that item on him, but it doesn't really abuse the spinning axe mechanic as well as Bloodthirster does. So that's why historically Dravens have tried to rush a lifesteal item first. Usually Bloodthirster, sometimes Death's Dance. So right now it's Bloodthirster. So I would go just Bloodthirster. I think a lot of people just go Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, and then after that maybe Rapid Fire Cannon. Just because he has such high scaling. Remember, you want to kill them quickly, as I keep saying over and over again, and he has insanely high scaling. This is every auto attack. This is like a lot of AD carries, they're like abilities that are on like an 8-second cooldown have 105% bonus AD. This is every single auto attack has 105 bonus AD, so you really, really want bonus AD on him. So yeah, I would just go Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, and after that Rapid Fire Cannon, just so that you get that first hit, just so you get that first burst of damage. Because if Draven hits you first, he's going to win the fight probably. Because you're going to be at like a, you know, half health off of this. So Draven does eye-popping damage. I'm sure y'all know about that. But AD is the way to go. Do not go double zeal item on him. You want to be going AD. So just Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge. I would probably go Rapid Fire in this meta. You can do Phantom Dancer if you want to be safer, but I think Rapid Fire is pretty solid. Okay. And then finally Kog'Maw. So he's who I'm probably going to make the profile picture or whatever, the thumbnail, just because you don't see him that much anymore. But I think that he is making a comeback. Definitely win rate wise. He's coming up quite a lot. He used to be down in like the 47s or something. He's all the way up almost to 53%. You're starting to see some pros play him. So if we look at over the last week or so in playoffs, among all regions, Kog'Maw has one of the highest win rates. Right? Look at that green. So Varus is also coming back in pro. We'll talk about Varus a little bit later, but You still have your usual suspects up near the top, right? Your Kaisas, your Lucians, your Vaynes. Ezreal's definitely fallen off a cliff after the double tier nerf. But some people are trying Jinx out to less success. But Kog'Maw and Varus are definitely starting to come back a little bit more. And particularly, I think Kog'Maw is someone who, you know, could be pretty decent here. So what's up with Kog'Maw? Why is Kog coming back? Well, I think that, you know, the Blade Ruin King plus the Gensu builds are very good. And people are remembering that, you know, he can out-damage just in a straight firefight. If you just right-click, he's going to beat almost anybody. If he turns on his W and just right-clicks, you know, he's going to beat him. So you can't dance around. You cannot dance around him because he's just going to auto-attack you to death, right? So if you're Vayne, if you're Lucian, if you're Kaisa, he just right-clicks and you're probably going to die if you have equal power level, right? So as long as you have somebody that can peel for you, he just outputs some of the highest damage in the game. And assassins are falling out of favor a little bit more. You're still seeing some of them, of course, in pro play. But especially, you know, on this patch, I moved him up particularly because of Wit's End. Wit's End is very good on him. You know, just like I was talking about with Vayne, I think an ideal build's probably going to be Blade Ruin King, and then Gensu's Rage Blade, and then Wit's End. So you can do the Hurricane build, but I think that he does have Hurricane option. But I think that Wits could be something to consider as well. You could also go Hurricane and then Wit's End if you want to do that. I believe each one of the bolts off of Hurricane, though, does apply his W, which is sick. That does a lot of damage, so you probably want to go Hurricane on him. But I do think that Wits later on is good. Or if they have, you know, a really high damage AP champ, then Wits can be good as well. Also, Lulu's rising to power. Now, a lot of people have not caught on to this, but she's trending upward in a big way. I've been calling for a Lulu revival for like the last 3 or 4 patches. Once like Vayne started to get buffed a lot, once there were just a lot more champions in the game, assassins were still kind of strong at the time. We were starting to see a lot more of these on-hit champs. You're starting to see a lot more Vaynes, Kaisas, and things like that come into the meta. I think that Lulu is becoming extremely powerful right now with sort of the revival of kind of the new age Ardent Sensor meta after they buffed the Forbidden Idol stuff back in the preseason. And Lulu's also very good with Hecarim, who's really popular and strong right now. Very good with divers like Jarvan. So very good against tanks to an extent. So she's very versatile. She's very strong. She is on the weak side towards Sona and towards Nami in the laning phase, but you can get through that with different runes and, you know, some other options that you have out there. So, you know, watch the support tier list if you want to know more about that. But Lulu, I mentioned Lulu because she's extremely good with Kog'Maw. That's like peanut butter and jelly, cookies and cream. Those two are insane together. Because she buffs up his attack speed to where it just goes through the roof. She gives him extra on-hit damage with picks. She can ult him to help keep him safe long enough to auto-attack more. So I think that Kog'Maw is definitely definitely has potential to come back into the meta in a very strong way. So, I mean, a lot of this is because, like I mentioned earlier, I think that tanks aren't going to come like overwhelmingly like soaring back into favor. I think you'll start to see more for sure every now and then sprinkled in. But he's good in that kind of meta, right? Because he shreds tanks really fast and he wants someone to frontline for him. He wants organized 5v5 team fights. He does not want clown fiestas. So that's really good. So they buffed a major item that can be very strong on him with Wit's End situationally. Blade Ruin King, as I talked about before, is very, very good because it's modular. And kind of like Jinx, he actually has some game. You know, during the laning phase, he's very good against Vayne. And that's something that people are starting to realize right now. If we look at sort of like, let me see here. Look at counters. I think I'm trying to remember. Counter picks, Kog'Maw counters. So he's pretty good against Vayne. He's pretty good against, like, Ezreal's kind of fallen out of favor. But Irelia, I mentioned Irelia is going to be coming back. Good against Lysandra. So he has a lot of really favorable matchups. Now, I don't know why it doesn't have Lulu. I think people just don't play Lulu enough. Some of these stats are just kind of weird sometimes because it just, the general population just doesn't play stuff optimally, right? But the reason he's so good against Vayne, he matches her in scaling overall, and You know, he can bully her in lane. You just turn on W and just walk up and start autoing her. She can't keep up with that. You have more range than she does. And you're starting to see with some pro builds with Kog'Maw here, people are starting to take Hail of Blades. So they're starting to play him like that, almost like an early game bully, right? Which you don't really think of that much, but he can bully out these kind of short range champs. Vayne, you see him played all day into Vayne and Xayah, kind of these short range scaling champs that just don't have abilities to punish him. Like, they don't have a 100% win rate against those champs, but you'll notice that's when he's getting picked the most, is into Vayne, into Xayah, and those are both very, very popular champions right now. You can throw Lucian in there too. Now, Lucian can get in his face and do some pretty heavy burst damage, so Lucian's slightly different, but these champions are not going to contest him, you know? And with Hail of Blades, you get to walk up, turn on your W, and just auto-attack them 3 times, and boom, that's a ton of damage. They can't fight you anymore. So I think that the fact that he has such huge range early on, kind of like Jinx, but he has even more damage early because he gets online with that W, just has such high base damage. It's a certain percentage of your health. You don't need any items to go with that necessarily. So I think that's it. I think he's very good in a meta where a bunch of other people are playing hyper carries that can't punish him, that aren't doing a lot of burst damage in the laning phase. You know, you're not seeing as many Xayahs, as many brands as we talked about with Twitch. So the difference between Kog'Maw and Twitch then is that Kog'Maw has a much more oppressive laning phase. He can run up with Hail of Blades and really bust people up, especially if Lulu throws Whimsy on him. He's going to start machine gunning people down with those first 3 attacks. You know, he's just not getting punished. Like I said before, you know, the Ignite, Dark Harvest has been nerfed, Misfortune, Jhin, all these champs just aren't here anymore. It's just Hyperscaler on Hyperscaler. He has the range. He has the high base damage. You know, he's going to be able to win a lot of the trades early on. So now, yes, he is probably the most vulnerable AD carry in the game. He has virtually no peel. He has this little, like, void vomit or whatever that he does that can kind of slow people down. He does not have that much peel. He has decent, if you get good with his ult, you know, he can decently snipe people out or poke people under tower fairly well. But yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it. He's just the hyperscaler that bullies other hyperscalers in the laning phase. So I think he definitely deserves to be in consideration for tier 1, especially if we start seeing tanks come out a bit more. So laning phase matters much more than it has in the past, right? You know, get those tower plays. You bully Vayne out, you force her to take a bad back. All right, you're going to get a plate or 2. Accelerate your build. And as always, he does Kog'Maw things. You know, he just completely melts tanks. He melts objectives. You know, he takes down Barons super fast, takes down Dragons quickly, just takes down everything quickly. You know, everybody's seen 2 or 3 item Kog'Maw. It's very hard to stop. And so if people start, if people are taking more tanks and less divers, then he could be good. Now, obviously, he's going to be weak against things like Jarvan. He's going to be weak against things like with Sandra that are both very popular right now. But if you can get a Lulu on your team, or a Kog, or a Tom Kench rather, or a Morgana, Morgana won't help you against Jarvan, but against a lot of the other CC champs, it could help you. So I think he's really good, and I think this is the new innovation. This is the new hotness. People are trending towards Hail of Blades to turn you into a bully in the laning phase instead of the lethal tempo. Right, you want to be able to bully out these other hyper carries. That's why you're playing him. So that's kind of a new frame of mind. People think of, oh, you just protect the Cog and wait till 5 items and Cog wins. It's like, no, you just bully the crap out of people in lane right now. That's what people are kind of doing with some of these Kale builds with Trinity Force too. They're kind of turning her into a bully where she abuses Sheen to bully people out early on. And that's what people did with Cassiopeia, right? That was the innovation with Cassiopeia maybe a few months ago, right, before they nerfed it, was people decided, you don't have to go tier, like, double scaling items. You can just go Ludens and just bully the crap out of people if you max your Q first. That's kind of the same revolution, I think, that's happening with Cog that not a lot of people are talking about yet. But I just kind of noticed that trend when I was looking at, like, why is Cog moving up so much in win rate? And I started looking, and I was like, oh, people were playing him like a bully. Okay. So you can be the first to abuse this, the first of your friends to abuse it, right? So obviously people know, pros know. There are going to be some people that are in the know, but I think a lot of other tier lists and content creators aren't giving this its due diligence yet. So I think Hail of Blades, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter are going to be good, and then just Footwear Biscuits, and then just your standard Blatherin King, Ginsu's. Hurricane can be really good too. Just depending on, you know, how much protection you need. Remember, Hurricane offers no protection, though. This gives 50 magic resist, so, and you're already going to be, like, completely deleting people off of 2 items. So he's like a Vayne that's less mobile, but has longer range and has more bully potential in the laning phase. Okay. Well, we're almost out of time here, so we'll just kind of crank through the rest of them really quickly. I think Lucian's been falling off because he has a much weaker level 2 item spike than a lot of other champs out there. I think really that's what it comes down to. You know, when you think about Vayne, once she gets Blade plus Gensu's, off to the races. Jinx, Infinity Edge plus Hurricane, Twitch, Hurricane plus Blade of the Ruined King, you know, Draven, Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge, Kog, Blade of the Ruined King, Gensu's. Then you get down to Lucian, and it's like Blade of the Ruined King, Black Cleaver. It's like Black Cleaver has nice utility, but let's be real, it doesn't give you a lot of extra attack speed. Gives you health, which is nice. But it's just not going to have that same kind of offensive just punch. Now, Lucian still has a lot of base damage. He can still bully people out. He's still very good on single item with Blade of the Ruined King, but he falls off hard at 2. And I think that from there on out, he's just going to start falling off compared to a lot of these hyper carries. So you better punish people hard in the laning phase, like really hard. And sometimes it's just hard to do that if they have a healer. If they have a Sona or a Nami, it's very difficult. Or sometimes, you know, your support's just not helping you punish. Maybe you have a Janna, it's just AFK behind you, and they're just letting this Vayne free farm up in front of you. And you can't step up too much because you're scared of that Leona that might latch onto you, right? Or you just keep eating all this harass from the Nami every time you try to step up. So I think it's tough out there. I think he's definitely become a tempo champion, right? He gets outscaled by a lot of other champs, and so he's kind of like a better version of Caitlyn to the extent to where, like, you need to, like, pressure people early. And I like him more than Caitlyn still just because he has, like, much higher, like, burst damage, right? He requires a lot less mechanics to do his burst, and he can snowball really hard, and he still has good utility. He still uses press the attack, which helps your team out. He still uses Blade of the Ruined King, helps your team out. You know, he's still pretty resilient to assassins, right? He can go Ninja Tabby if he has to. You know, Black Cleaver is going to give him extra 400 health. So he's still good. He still has a lot of potential out there, but his win rate has been falling, and I think that's why, is he just can't keep up with the types of champions that are getting played right now, just because they outscale him at 2 items. But he's still very good. I would still prefer him over Xayah most of the time. And statistically, I think that's true as well. Xayah is supremely popular right now, but she does not have a good win rate at all. She's barely, like, sort of staggering in, you know, stumbling in at almost a 50% win rate, whereas Lucian is still going to be, you know, in the, I guess Lucian's actually down a lot lower than I thought. I guess Lucian is a bit lower as well. But I just feel like Lucian has more impact in my games. Like, Xayah takes longer to come online, and she just doesn't have the same kind of bully potential that he does. So he can still be good, but I think that these 5 champs are probably going to be where you want to be right now. Speaking of which, Xayah, we have next. So people have kind of rediscovered Stormrazor on Xayah. They gave it the 5 AD buff, which actually ended up mattering quite a bit. It helps her get her evolutions a lot faster. But it's a really weak single item. You know, when you compare Stormrazor to Infinity Edge or Stormrazor to Blade of the Ruined King, you are way weaker on single item power spike than a lot of other champions are out there. Now, once you get your Gensu's, then it's kind of off to the races again. You're going to have your double evolution. You know, you're going to be proccing your passive a ton. You're going to get to move around and be invisible and, you know, do all this Xayah stuff that's really strong. It's just you have to get there first. So I think she has a really weak first item compared to a lot of other champions. Her second item is comparable to something like Vayne, to, you know, to a lot of these champions. It's okay. I still think it's weaker than Vayne on 2 or Jinx on 2 or Twitch on 2. Most champions on 2. Then once she starts getting to her third item, she gets to Hurricane, then I think it's kind of off to the races there. I think she is someone also who could potentially go Wit's End. But also think that she's probably a little bit more incentivized to try to get some more crit items after that, or certainly get Hurricane so she can apply her passive to a lot of people. So she's still pretty good. She's very popular in pro. She's very popular in solo queue, but she has nice tools. She can single target burst people out once she evolves her Q. She can use her ultimate to reposition. So I think all of that can be pretty good, but I just see her underperform a lot in lane, and a lot of it, if she falls behind, it just feels really bad because her first item is weak, and her second item, in some cases, is on par, but in a lot of other cases, is going to be weaker as well. So she's all right. So I would highly recommend that you play one of these 7 champions most of the time right now in solo queue. You can play other stuff, but there is definitely a dramatic drop-off once you get past Xayah, I think. Okay, so Xayah is another champ who can be pretty good. They did buff her last patch. She's harder to play. You have to play geometry with her feathers. She really has to get Essence Reaver first, which is nice. It's not going to be as strong as Infinity Edges on a couple of champs or Blather and King, but it's pretty good. So usually she'll go Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon, Infinity Edge. So good scaling, good peel, good AoE team fight. I just think especially because Rakan's in a super weak state right now compared to where it used to be, that does hurt her a little bit, but overall, she's still strong. You can work with her. She has nice wave clear early on. She has some pretty good avoidance with her ultimate. She does really nice like AoE teamfight damage, but we're still not to full-on team fights in the same way that we have been in the past. And I just think she's going to get outscaled and murdered by a lot of these hyper carries up here in a lot of situations. But she is safer, and she does perform really well late game in those organized team fights. Caitlyn can be good. Caitlyn has the potential to be one of the best AD carries. She can bully a lot of these champions out early, but you have to have very good trap placement. You have to, auto-attack the enemy a lot and really bully them out. And you have to take tower plates. So you have to push in, take plates, not die to ganks, take those towers quickly, rotate, and take more towers. She's a heavy, heavy tempo champion. If you ever fall behind, you ever get killed, or you're just not auto-attacking as much as you should, you're not wave clearing as much as you should, you're just only maybe like 10 CS over the Vayne, and you only have like 1 plate by 12 minutes, you're losing. And I just don't like playing those types of champs where it's like you have to basically overperform. You have to do way better than the enemy AD carry in order to achieve a same level of power. Now, people have asked, well, what about Caitlyn? Why does she fall off so hard? The thing is, when you look at her kit, she doesn't have any attack speed steroids. Like, nothing in her kit gives her extra attack speed and nothing gives her extra AD. Almost all of those top champions have something that gives them extra attack speed or AD, or they have some kind of on-hit mechanic. Vayne's got her silver bolts. She gets extra AD off of her ult. Twitch has his poison. He gets extra attack speed off of his Q. He gets extra AD off of his ultimate. Kog'Maw gets extra attack speed off of his Q, gets a lot of extra on-hit damage off of his W. Draven gets a lot of extra on-hit off of his Q, gets a lot of attack speed off of his W. Just all of the top-tier champions have that. She doesn't have that. Like, nothing gives attack speed, nothing gives AD. Her on-hit is very weak. It's like, yeah, she does have headshot, but you have to hit people 7 times to get a little bit of extra damage. That's far worse than Vayne having to hit people 3 times, or Xayah having to hit people, I think, 4 or 5 times. I don't remember the exact number offhand. I think it's 4. You don't have to, Kog'Maw every single hit, So she just can't sit there and auto-attack and keep up. She has to make really good use of her traps, which, by the way, you should be maxing trap. It allows you to have much more zones of control, and it does a ton of damage. I mean, this thing does 240 damage plus 100% extra bonus AD, and it triggers a headshot. Q does not trigger a headshot. It does some nice damage here. Just the Q by itself probably does more damage, but if you take the headshot into account, the headshot's going to be way, way more valuable. So Q is nice for wave clear. This is also like almost free mana-wise. So I think not enough people do trap max Caitlyn. I think it's very good. That's your zone of control. That keeps people from getting onto you. That allows you to apply more pressure, and it does more damage. And trap not only like allows you to headshot, but allows you to combo. So someone steps on your trap, you headshot them, you E backwards, and that gives you, and you can start your Q animation while you're Eing backwards, and that basically one-shots people if you get that correctly, right? So they step on a trap, headshot, E backwards while you're in that animation Q. As soon as your Q animation finishes, you headshot them again, ult them, they're dead. Most of the time. And that's how really good Caitlyn's do it. But you know how most Caitlyn's do it? Don't even put a trap down. Just auto-attack the minion wave. That's it. That's why I don't like having Caitlyn on that team. So yes, if you're very technically proficient, if you're putting the traps in good places, if you're making very good use of those headshots, she can be extremely powerful. I also think that Klepto potentially could be very good on her. I've been trying this out. If you max traps first, because it's only 20 mana to set it down, you have such a long auto-attack range, you should easily be able to get a Klepto proc, at least 1, sometimes 2, with 650 auto range every time you set down a trap or every time you throw a Piltover Peacemaker. So, the Klepto gives you a lot of potions, right? You get a lot of health potions, mana potions, wards. It helps you push up more, just like we keep talking about with Klepto in terms of Draven. It's really good. I think the same concept applies to Caitlyn, right? So with Draven, why do you get Klepto? Because it's really easy for you to trigger it off of your W and your auto attacks, and you're a lane bully champion. And there's not another keystone that's really good on you. Why would you do it on Caitlyn? Exact same reason. What do you get, you know, off of Fleet Footwork? You get a little bit of a heal in the laning phase. It's nice. You know what else heals? Potions. And you get more gold off of Klepto. So that's why I like it. Yes, you do have a cute interaction. If you go Rapid Fire Cannon, you know, you're going to charge up your fleet faster. It gives you a little bit more speed, a little bit more healing later on in the game. Yes, that's nice. But I don't want later on in the game. I want to dominate as Caitlyn in the laning phase and close out that game. I want my Infinity Edge before they finish theirs. You know, I want that tower down. So that's why I think that Trap Max Klepto Caitlyn can be really good. If you don't buy into the whole Klepto thing, you can still go fleet and still max traps. I still think that that's going to be better. You're just going to run yourself out of mana spamming Qs in the laning phase early on, and it's not giving you any zones of control, right? You're just maybe hitting them sometimes with Q and wave clearing a little bit faster. So that's what I highly recommend on Caitlyn. And then I've been toying around, and I think it feels really good to go double AD, once again, like Draven, because you don't scale that well with attack speed, but you have really good AD ratios. I mean, look at these ratios. Draven's were very good, but look at this. 100% AD right here. 170%. Your headshot itself. Your main mechanic. You know, 100% AD. Your ultimate, 200% bonus AD. So she really, really wants AD. So I think you have to go Infinity Edge first, just because if you crit off of headshot, it's just insane. It's a lot of damage. But I think, honestly, maybe go one Zeal item and then go something like a Bloodthirster after that. Just go for another heavy AD item, or even an Essence Reaver. People don't think about Essence Reaver. They think that's kind of a troll item, but it has heavy AD and heavy crit. And it's going to allow you to keep spamming your Piltover Peacemakers and your traps in the mid to late game. So I think that's something that's really undervalued on Caitlyn, because attack speed's so bad on her. So that's just worth considering. I think that there's a lot to be explored with Caitlyn. There's a lot to be theory crafted. I think a lot of people aren't playing her optimally right now, potentially. So she can be good, but you really have to pressure hard, and you really have to take over the game early and push your advantage. So you cannot lose tempo. You cannot die. You cannot take a bad back. You have to be aggressive. And sometimes that's out of your hands. You know, sometimes the enemy jungler just camps you. Even if you don't die, you're going to get zoned off of CS. You're going to fall behind. It's going to give Vayne free farm. Maybe your support just stands AFK behind you and doesn't do anything. You know, and the Nami or the Sona gets to come up and just bully you out of lane because you're not buying Vamp Scepter early, so you're not going to have a ton of sustain. Yeah, you do have Fleet if you take Fleet. Yeah, you might get some potions if you take Klepto. You're going to have your Biscuits, but still, you know, there can be a lot of things that go wrong with tempo champs. But if you play things like Vayne, Jinx, Twitch, even if you get out tempoed, even if your support is AFK basically in the lane, you're still going to scale. You still have the late game option. That option's off the table as Caitlyn. So take her. I love playing her. She's a lot of fun, especially with Klepto and Trap Max, but very risky. You got to be very sure that you're going to dominate. Sivir is another one. I'm not fully sold on Sivir, and we really got to speed up here. I know I'm going way too long on this. I'm not fully sold on Sivir. She does have really nice wave clear. She does have a great win rate. I have seen Sivir's takeover before. My problem with her, she does do some pretty decent damage with her Q if she hits in the laning phase, but she goes really quickly, and she can be bullied out. She has really short attack range. So if you're against something like a Jinx early or like a Kog'Maw, they can bully you with autos hard, or Draven. Like, she's good against those champions that, you know, heavily rely on trying to hit her with skill shots, right? So she's good against, to an extent, Nami. She's very good against Caitlyn because you can run over the traps and get free mana back. So anything where that spell shield's going to give her a lot of value, that's pretty good. But champions just walk up and hit her in the face with auto attacks, going to be a bit weaker there. So she can be good. She does wave clear really quickly, has really nice utility for your team. So if you have things like Hecarim or Olaf or other champs that just want to run in and just dogpile the enemy, she's great. And she's good in 5-on-5 fights because her, you know, W just bounces around everywhere. She does a ton of AoE damage in fights. So pretty good, just a slightly weaker laning phase. She can get through that somewhat by just hard pushing over and over again so that they don't have time to harass you. in the laning phase, which can work. But I just think that she's a little bit more risky than some of the top level champions, even though she has a high win rate, even though she's popular in pro. How did she perform last week? Was she played? Wow, she's not played at all? Oh, a little bit. She was played 4 times. Okay, so she's seeing some pro representation, but anyways, I think she's all right. You want to go Essence Reaver because you are a mana hog. You do need that, and then after that, Static Shiv to double down on your wave clear, I think is a good idea, and then Infinity Edge after, Infinity Edge after that. Is probably where you want to be with her. Now, Karthus Tier 3 finally. I think he still can be pretty good. They just nerfed Ultimate Hunter, so that's really nice for him. I just think that AD carries, like hyper carries, are so strong right now that you really want one on your team composition-wise. But if you already have a ton of AD on your team and you need an AP option and you don't like playing Kog'Maw, then I think he can still be pretty good. Everyone knows Karthus does a ton of damage. You just farm up. They did nerf his Q a while back. That hurts some, but he's still all right. Ezreal kind of fell off a cliff. If you're extremely good on Ezreal, you can still make him work, but you're basically handing a free lane to things like Vayne, Jinx, Twitch, Draven, Kog, and you're just going to get blown up. The double tier build no longer works, so you're more of kind of a mid-game champion now, because late game you're going to get outscaled. So he's all right. You're paying for supreme safety right now, and yeah, I think that's just a huge risk in a hyper carry type of meta that we're in. Trist is okay. Trist feels like she should be better, but I think the problem is early on she just needs levels. You know, she needs levels to get a lot of attack speed out of her Q. You also want levels in your Ws. You have more all-in burst damage, but you also want levels in your E. She just wants a lot of levels. So she does like pretty decent damage, but she's mostly an auto attacker until she gets those levels. And has short range. Her burst damage is kind of low. If you get ahead, she's one of the best snowballing champs in the game, though. You get a couple of kills early, you come back with an early BF sword while they're still sitting on like a Vamp Scepter, you can take over because you just jump on them and just blow them up. She takes towers really quickly. She's very safe. She can jump away with her W, which buffers, so it's very hard to CC her. She scales really hard with attack speed. Her ultimate can blow people back to safety, so she can be really strong. She just has a very tough early game, and I think she's just going to get bullied by most of these champs. Misfortune, great early game bully. Kind of like Caitlyn, though, you better take over early, because if you don't, a lot of these hyper carries are just going to blow you up. Now, she is very good in team fights, so if you have a 5v5 team fight comp and stuff that can hold people still, like Jarvan in particular, if Jarvan can run up and like dunk 3 people and you ult into that, that's amazing. Or if like Misfortune or a Mumu ults and you ult into that, that's amazing. So if you have a really good team fight comp, she can be great. She can also bully out early if you get proficient at bouncing those Qs. She can bully things like Vayne, Jinx, Twitch. But remember, they're going to have a lot of lifesteal, and they're going to outscale you and beat you up one-on-one a lot of times. So you better take over early. You better take over early. Now, some people with Misfortune have been doing this sort of like on-hit build. I haven't really explored that. I meant to research that and just totally forgot until right now. But I personally don't know what's up with that. Some people are trying it out. They have a little bit of a decent win rate with her with press the attack. So I think the thing is you max your impure shots or your strut or whatever. It does give you a lot of movement speed for 5 seconds. Or for 4 seconds. Gives you pretty good movement speed. Gives you 100% attack speed. So that is pretty nice. But I'm going to have to explore this a bit more. I think her Q... Does it apply on hits twice? Is that a thing? It seems really alien to me. Historically, I would have thought that was total trash, but everybody's doing it now. So I just have to watch a video on it. It can critically strike. It does apply on hits, including love tap. Making a new target with love tap reduces strut by 2 seconds. Okay, so you can get your strut up faster. So if you auto attack a minion wave and then bounce with your Q on people, you lower the cooldown on strut. So you can have strut a lot more uptime on strut. I guess in team fights, if you're just attacking a bunch of different people, you might be able to get like 100% uptime on strut. Maybe that's what it is. Like I said, I'll have to watch a video, but in team fights, if you keep switching targets or like bouncing Qs off of people, you're going to reset your love tap, and that will activate strut. Or that will lower the cooldown on strut. So you can probably get strut down reasonably to like a I don't know, a 6 to 8 second cooldown, and it's got 4 seconds uptime. I mean, it could be good. So I'm going to have to watch a video on it. Maybe it's a lot better than I think. This is one where I definitely am, you got to plead ignorance on this one. I forgot to, you know, watch the video on the new hotness here. But I think that's what a lot of people are doing. So you can check it out if you want. It just feels really weird to me to go Blade the Ruined King. I mean, I guess the lethality action here does apply to the damage off a blade. So that does allow your Blade the Ruined King to do more damage with the lethality. Going something like Press the Attack does add burst damage. It does allow your Blade the Ruined King to do more damage. You are really fast with this build because you have Youmuu's for speed. You can speed people up or like speed yourself up and slow them down with Blade the Ruined King. You have Strut, which gives you a ton of extra movement speed. So I guess this is kind of like Need for Speed. You can rotate around the map really quickly too. So I'll have to try this out on Viewers Night or something. It looks pretty cool. I kind of forgot about it, like I said, until just now. But I don't know. Maybe it works. It seems a little goofy, seems a little wacky. Blade the Ruined King doesn't have like any synergy with your ult, but maybe people just aren't relying on the ult as much. Maybe they're just run up and auto attacking you a lot, getting you low, and then whenever you try to flash away, then they ult and kill you. I'm not sure. But anyways, maybe it's a smoother power curve. Maybe you get the extra lifesteal so you can bully people out more. You get the bilge water for burst damage in the laning phase. I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to try it out more, but a lot of people are doing it. It's not like it's like 80% win rate. You know, it's about 52% in pro. It's not ultra popular. It's okay. It doesn't look like there are a couple people that tried it in pro. It was middling last week, so we'll see. It's okay. I'm going to have it down at tier 3 for now. I'm not sure. It could be as high as maybe tier 2. I could see putting it up there maybe instead of Xayah or Caitlyn. If it is something that's actually pretty tenable. I'll just have to reflect on it a bit more and try it out, practice it, and then I can tell you on the next patch what I think about it, or during stream if you ask me during Viewers Night when I'm trying this out. I can let you know. But I just don't know when I would want to play that. Sort of like if I'm going like on hit, if I'm going for someone with attack speed that's going to get Blade the Ruined King that does a lot of damage, like why am I not playing Vayne? Why am I not playing Twitch or Kog'Maw, you know? Like, that's my whole thing. It's like, yeah, she is a bit faster. She does have her ult. She does some different stuff. But if we're just, like, looking for auto-attack damage, I think I'd rather just play Kog or Twitch or Vayne. But anyways, I'm not sure the tactical situations when you would want her over other champs. You know, she does have bully potential early, but so does Kog with Hail with Blade. So, I don't know. Anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. Check out the rest of the stuff on the channel as well. I already have a support tier list out there. We stream every night starting around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tons of topical guides, stuff like how to one-trick, better macro, better micro. We also have tons of coaching sessions. Got like 170 coaching sessions if you just want to watch kind of a play-by-play breakdown of me trying to help people improve. It's organized, you know, by most recent, and it also has a good thumbnail on there so you can see which champion that I'm going to be analyzing so you can find your favorites and hear some commentary about it. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. See you next time.